Hi, and welcome to our online video, Don't Go Broke Paying the Nursing Home. This is the exact same workshop that I give in person at least 4 or 5 times a year. I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. I came to the mainland in 1975 to go to school at the University of Southern California. I'm married to a Japanese-American girl by the name of Nancy, and we have 2 adult kids. In our family, specifically my wife's family, we've had personal experience in dealing with long-term care and nursing home care. My wife's grandmother, Ba-chan, came down with severe Alzheimer's when she was in her late 80s, and we ended up having to place her in a long-term care facility. Also, her uncle and auntie, we also had to take care of them. Uncle eventually passed away in a hospital, but auntie ended up also in the same nursing home that Ba-chan was in. So we've been affected by long-term care, and we know how important it is for you to get the right information. As far as my experience with Medi-Cal, I've been doing that for over 25 years. And as far as I can estimate, we have done thousands and thousands of applications, and we've protected over $100 million of our clients' assets. So I wrote the book, Don't Go Broke Paying the Nursing Home. It's available on Amazon. Simply type in my name, Karl Kim with a K, in the search bar, and the book will pop up. It's very short, it's very concise, but it gets right to the meat of the matter when it comes to Medi-Cal planning. I've appeared in many publications, most recently the New York Times. It was on an article about planning for Alzheimer's and dementia. I've also appeared in Kiplinger's a couple of times, regularly in the Ralph Shimpo, Gardena Valley News, Peninsula News, and many decades ago in the Pacific Citizen, which is a newsletter put out by the JACL. What's that on your screen? Anybody know? It's a dune buggy. Well, why a dune buggy? Why are we talking about dune buggy in a Medi-Cal planning workshop? Well, this is how I got started. One day I was in my office in Torrance, and a Japanese-American lady comes walking in. She said that she was referred to me by the attorneys across the street. I don't know how they knew I was there, but they knew I was there, and she came to me to see if I could help her get her son qualified for Medi-Cal benefits. He was 40 years old, and he was an aerospace engineer. 10 years earlier, the dune buggy had flipped over, and he broke his neck, cracked his skull, and a bunch of other things. And now, when I was talking to her, he was in what's called a subacute facility. He was a quadriplegic. He needed help 24 hours a day, and so that's why she came to me. The long-term care at that point was costing the family $12,000 to $15,000 a month, which back in the day was quite a lot of money. So I said, well, you know, I was very young at the time. I said, you know, I don't know about Medi-Cal, Medicare, Social Security. I'm just a young guy. I have no idea. And then that's when she started crying. And guys, you know, once a woman starts crying, it's very, very, very difficult to say no. So I said, okay, I'll see what I can do. I can't guarantee anything. And so I proceeded to try and help her son get qualified for Medi-Cal. All right, so what you see on the screen there, those of you that have gone to USC, you know that this is Doheny Library. Well, when I was at USC, I was in a work-study program, so I was a research assistant for Dr. Clayton in the School of Public Administration. And so Dr. Clayton would send me to Doheny Library to gather up research for whatever book or paper that he was working on. So I got really good at what's called, or used to be called, the Dewey Decimal System. Today we call it what? We call it Google. So I knew how to research things, and so I put these skills to work in helping this woman get her son qualified for Medi-Cal. Well, besides trying to scour the libraries, and remember now, back in those days, there was no internet. Going through all the materials, what I did was I picked up the phone and I called the Medi-Cal office for LA County in the City of Industry, and I said, hi, I'd like some information on Medi-Cal. And the lady said, are you applying? And I said, no, I just like some information. And she said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And she hung up the phone. Okay, so it was very difficult to piece all of this together. But luckily, I was able to get her son qualified for Medi-Cal. And what happened was, in the people in the next bed, the family found out what I had done. They came to me in the next bed, and so that's how I got started on the job training in helping people to get qualified for Medi-Cal. So your biggest financial risk in retirement is going to be paying for nursing home care, because nursing home care if you're not familiar with it and haven't gone through the system, nursing home care is really, really expensive. So my father-in-law, while he was alive, he was a gardener. And every day before he would go on his route, he would go to the local McDonald's on National, Sawtell, and chitter-chatter with his buddies. So one day I was at their house, and he had given me some coffee, and I said, "Hey, Dad, I'd like some sugar for my coffee." And he pointed to the cabinet. And so I opened the cabinet, and lo and behold, there were literally thousands of McDonald's sugar packets. And I said, "What's this?" Well, he explained to me that every morning after he was done talking to his friends, what he would do is he would take 3 McDonald's sugar packets, put it in his pocket, and then bring it home for Mom, okay, because he was very frugal. People of that generation, very frugal, having gone through the war. Give it to his wife, and then Mom would put it into the cabinet. And if she wanted to bake a cake, she would open up the packets and use whatever sugar she could get. So very frugal. So I said, "Dad, why only 3 sugar packets? Why not 4? And he said, "Well, if I took 4, that would be stealing." So it was pretty funny when he said that. All right. But the point of the matter is that generation, as I said, very frugal. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he was thinking that as he got older, he was going to have to save up some money for some medical expense or some big expense in his retirement. So my question is, the money that they save up, is that going to be enough? Well, let's take a look at it. Nursing home care in Los Angeles is going to run you about almost $95,000 a year. In 5 years, that's going to grow to over $111,000 a year. So my question to you is, how long before your money runs out? How long can you afford to pay for nursing home care? So each of you has a different number, all right? So take that $111,000 and apply it to your own personal situation. Well, I'm never going to need nursing home care, right? That's what everyone says, okay? Denial, procrastination. Well, let's take a look at that. 45% or 133 million Americans suffer from at least one chronic disease. And we're talking about things like heart disease, Alzheimer's, chronic lung disease, strokes, Parkinson's. 1 out of 10 people age 65 or older are going to come down with Alzheimer's or dementia. So 1 out of 3 age 85 or older are going to have Alzheimer's or dementia. 64% of those, ladies, are you listening, are going to be women. And what about falls? Here's all the numbers on falls. You can see it on your screen. Falls happen in an instant. It's one of the most common ways that seniors are admitted to the hospital. 7 out of 10 people age 65 and older are going to need some long-term care services or help in their lifetime. Now, why is all this happening? Well, because we're all living longer, right? Medicine, exercise, better diets. So if you reach age 65, if you're a male, good chance that you're going to live to at least 84 years old. And if you're a woman, 86 years old, maybe even 87. So we're all living longer. Well, I don't have to worry because I have Medicare, all right? A good percentage of the population believes they don't have to worry about long-term care. Well, let's take a look at how the system works for someone that's age 65 or older if they have to go to the hospital, because you may end up in a nursing home, like it or not. So here's your Medicare card, red, white, and blue. Some people carry it in the wallet, okay? When you turn 65, this is what you get. Part A is hospital, Part B is doctors, Part C is Medicare Advantage plan, and Part D is your prescription drug coverage. Part of the reason for all the confusion is this. If you go from home to the hospital and you're in the hospital for at least 3 consecutive days, and then from there you're discharged to a rehab facility, then Medicare is going to pay for some of your initial treatment, and that's called rehab care. But rehab care, what's another name for rehab care? You're going to be in a nursing home. So what does Medicare pay? From days 1 through 20, Medicare is going to pay 100% of all your expenses. Days 21 through 100, the copay for this year is $176 a day. So there's 80 days in that time frame, so you could possibly be out of pocket a little over $14,000. Now, you're going to have to check with your insurance company because the coverage is going to vary from plan to plan. And here we're just simply talking about Medicare in general. But it doesn't matter which plan you have from day 101 on, you're going to have to pay for everything out of your own pocket. So what I want you to remember is that Medicare pays for short-term medically necessary care only. You might want to write that down. Short-term care. All right? Short-term medically necessary care. So now let's say that you're in the rehab facility and now you're not getting worse, you're not getting better, you're deemed to be what's called stable. All right, so that's when Medicare reimbursement stops. So what's going to happen is that the business office is going to go out and they're going to tell your family, mom or dad, okay, they're doing okay, they're stable, so he or she is coming off of Medicare reimbursement in 2 days, 3 days, 1 week. Okay, you just don't know. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go home? Are you going to go to another facility? Maybe the facility has long-term care beds and your parent or whoever you're dealing with can stay there. You don't know. Okay? So when you move from short-term rehab care, then you're going to move to long-term care. And you could technically be in the same facility, but the method of payment is going to be different. So what are your choices when you move from short-term to long-term care? Well, number one, you can pay for your long-term care out of, just by writing a check, right, out of your own income and assets. Number two, maybe you have long-term care insurance. Some people do, but what we're talking about today is number three, the third option, which is trying to qualify for long-term care Medi-Cal. Okay, so for the next few minutes, I would like you to suspend everything that you've heard, all what you believe is true or not true about Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal is Medicaid. We call it Medi-Cal here in California. All right, it's the only government program that's going to help the middle class pay for nursing home care. Well, can I qualify? Well, a lot of people think, I have too much money to qualify. I'll never qualify for Medi-Cal. Well, let's take a look at it. I'll explain to you how qualification works. So when we submit an application to, let's say, the LA County City of Industry Medi-Cal office, when Medi-Cal receives the application, they're going to break down your finances. And something is either going to be an asset or it's going to be income. So your eligibility for benefits is going to be based upon how much you have in countable assets. Some assets are countable and some assets are non-countable. Then once you qualify for benefits, that's where income comes in. Okay? So this is different from other Medi-Cal programs. So this program is not based on income, it's based on how much you have in countable assets. So income-wise, we're only talking about income that's irrevocable or cannot be turned off. So we're talking about things like Social Security, your pension, and distributions from your retirement accounts or your RMDs. All right, so that's income. So if you're a single person cannot have more than $2,000 in countable assets. Now notice I didn't say assets, I said countable assets, and we'll go over what a countable asset is. All right. If you're a married couple and one spouse is applying for benefits, for this year, 2020, you can have up to $130,640. So right there, do you have to be broke in order to qualify for Medi-Cal? No. $130,000 is a fair amount of money for most people, correct? All right. Now, did we do anything illegal, or did I tell you to hide money under the bed or do anything like that? No. It's simply knowing the rules. Okay? So what's a countable asset? A countable asset is basically anything that can be converted very quickly into cash. So we're talking about things like your checking accounts, savings, money market accounts, your CDs, brokerage accounts, your Charles Schwab, your Franklin mutual funds as an example. A second car is a countable asset. Here's what I call the booger assets. Booger assets, right? And it's a booger because they're very difficult to deal with. And so in that classification, I count life insurance as a booger asset. Because folks, let me ask you, if something happened and you were in a crisis situation and now you needed to qualify for Medi-Cal, but let's say you had, as an example, $20,000 of cash value in your life insurance policy. So now, how long is it going to take you to get that $20,000? Maybe a month? Maybe 2 months? Or what about if you're incapacitated and your son or your daughter calls the insurance company? Are they going to be able to get the money from the insurance company? That's why it's a booger asset. Annuity, same thing, because it's dealing with the insurance company again. Oh, here's a good one, timeshares. How many of you out there have timeshares? So we're talking about things like the Lawrence Welk timeshares, the Disney timeshares. So part of the process is we have to value or put a value on the timeshare. How do we do that? How do we value the Lawrence Welk timeshare? Well, Lawrence Welk timeshares went broke many years ago. So if you Google Lawrence Welk timeshares, you'll see everybody trying to sell our timeshares. So how do we get a value? Pretty difficult. Oh, vacant land. Oh, remember back in the day, the international airport was going to go into the Mojave Desert, right up in Lancaster? Okay, so a lot of people put their money together and bought a piece of vacant land, right, hoping to make a killing when the airport went in. Is the airport in there now? No. So, vacant land. Savings bonds. Savings bonds are also a booger asset. They're a favorite of the aerospace engineer or people that work for aerospace companies. Savings bonds, you got them in your safe, okay? They're accumulating. It's just a hard asset to deal with. So your home. Your home, contrary to what many people believe, doesn't count as an asset for Medi-Cal qualification, all right? Regardless of value. So you could live in your car, you could live on a boat, you could live in a tract home, or you could live in Bel Air behind the gates, all right? Regardless of value, if that's your home where you live, it doesn't count for qualification. Let's talk about your retirement accounts. So when I did my first Medi-Cal case, he was an aerospace engineer. He was still working. He was 40 years old. So he had a 401k plan. He was still working, so he was putting money into the 401k plan. So if you're putting money into the retirement plan, or if the retirement plan money is just sitting there, then it's a countable asset. Are you with me so far? Okay, so let's say, as an example, I'm a 55-year-old aerospace engineer. I'm still working, I'm still fine. I'm putting money from my paycheck every week into the 401k plan. So my $300,000, as an example, let's say that I have in there, if something happened to me and now I'm trying to qualify for Medi-Cal, it's a countable asset, all right? Now, fast forward. Now, let's say I'm a retired aerospace engineer. I'm 75 years old. When I retired, I rolled over my 401k plan into an IRA rollover account. You with me so far? I'm 75 years old. What does the IRS say has to happen at age 72? I have to take out a required minimum distribution. So now I'm taking money out of my 401k plan. So now that $300,000 in my IRA rollover account doesn't count as an asset for Medi-Cal qualification. That's a biggie, folks, all right? And those are the rules. So let me ask you this. Did we do anything illegal up to this point? No. It's just simply knowing the rules. And it gets even better. So let's say that I'm married to a 55-year-old Fortune 500 CEO, all right? And she's got $1 million in her 401k plan. That $1 million, believe it or not, is a non-countable asset if I'm trying to qualify for Medi-Cal. My wife does not have to take a distribution in order for it to be non-countable. All right, so let's go through the list here, what I just went over. I'm trying to qualify for Medi-Cal. As a couple, we've got $125,000 in the bank. I've got a $300,000 IRA rollover. My wife has $1 million in her 401k plan, and we live in a home that's worth $1 million. Can I qualify for Medi-Cal? Think about it. The $125,000, $300,000, $1 million, those are all exempt assets, all right? So absolutely yes, I can qualify for benefits. Also, non-countable assets include a car, household goods. They're not going to come out to your house to see what you have in there. Personal property, burial plot or niche, all right? And if you have a burial plan with Fukui or Kuburo Nikkei, and the benefits are payable to the mortuary upon death, then it's also a non-countable asset. Well, my monthly income is too high. I'll never qualify for Medi-Cal. Folks, what did we just say? Qualification is not based upon how much you have in monthly income. Qualification is based upon how much you have in countable assets, right? So this is a big one that people think, they get it confused because they don't know there are many different types of Medi-Cal programs. This is a biggie. People automatically disqualify themselves because I'm making $4,000 a month or I have a $5,000 a month pension. Folks, it doesn't matter. It's how much you have in countable assets. Once again, your eligibility is not based on how much money you make every month. Once qualified, though, your monthly income is going to help pay what's called your share of costs, your share of the nursing home bill. So let me explain and give you an example. Let's say your nursing home bill is $10,000 a month. Your monthly income is $1,000. Well, that $1,000 is what's going to go to the nursing home as your share of costs. Medi-Cal is going to pay the rest. All right, so in this example, that's $9,000. That's a savings of over $100,000 a year. That's a big deal, right? Okay. So here's an example in real life. Take a look at your screen. This is actually a bill for one of our clients. And so in this particular example, what happened was it was a husband and wife, and the husband had a massive stroke, so severe that he had to get what's called a tracheotomy in his throat so that he could breathe and be on life support. So he was in the subacute facility, and the wife's at home, and she gets his bill in the mail. Okay, she opens it up. And take a look at it, folks. How much is the bill for the month of June? $26,000. This is a real bill. I'm not making it up. $26,000. And look at the date. This is back in 2011. All right, it's got to be more now, obviously. Okay, but back in 2011, it was $26,000. She about fainted, right? Think about how you would feel if you were the spouse at home and you got this in the mail. All right. So another reason why people think they don't qualify for Medi-Cal, I have to sell or give away my home or Medi-Cal is going to take it. You know, there's a lot of confusion over this. And basically what happens is that, you know, people go to parties and they say, well, I talked to my lawyer and this is what's going to happen. All right. So let's clear up this myth. All right. So we talked about your home. For qualification, your home doesn't count. It's considered an exempt asset. But there's something called recovery. All right, so your home may or not be exempt from recovery. What is recovery? Think of Medi-Cal as a loan program. While you're alive, the state is going to help you to pay your nursing home bill. But after you pass away, the state wants their money back. Recovery. Here's an actual bill from the Medi-Cal department, all right? So this is for one of our clients. Father was in the nursing home, passed away. Son calls me up on the phone, Mr. Kim, I just got this in the mail. They want $167,000. And I said, well, don't worry about it. Before we applied for Medi-Cal for your dad, we planned for this, okay? So let's go to the next slide. By the way, they give you 60 days in order to come up with the money. That's really generous of them. All right, so we got this bill down to zero. All right, so we did all the paperwork, sent it into the state in Sacramento, and this is the letter that we get back. Okay, thank you for your notification. We will not file a creditor's claim. So this is the free and clear. All right, so we were able to have his father be on Medi-Cal. All right, preserve. All he paid for the nursing home was his monthly income. And then after he passed away, there's no recovery because we had planned for it. And this is the proof. All right. So Back in the old days, we had to do a lot of crazy things in order to protect assets from recovery, but that changed effective January 1st, 2017. Now the state of California can only recover against assets that are subject to probate. So if your house is titled in the name of the living trust, if it's titled as joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, for example, the state of California now cannot recover against that asset. Are we clear on that? Now, on the other hand, if the home is titled in mom's name only and then mom passes away, the state will go after that for recovery. All right? So it's very important that your assets, especially your home, be titled properly to avoid probate at death. So as an example, let's take a look what Medi-Cal can recover against. So when we got everything set up properly, we got them approved, the person approved, they can own a home, they can have up to $2,000 in the bank, and they can have an IRA, right, if they're receiving income from it. Person passes away, this is considered their estate at time of death. The home, $2,000 in the bank, and an IRA. So once again, if the home is titled in such a way as to avoid probate at death, then the state of California cannot go after it. Same thing with the bank account. If the bank account is titled, let's say, mom and daughter as joint tenants with rights of survivorship, they cannot go after that. And with the IRA, as long as there's a person that's a beneficiary, then they can't go after that. All right, so that's basically the nutshell of how you can protect assets from being recovered against. All right, so let's go over the most confusing and misunderstood Medi-Cal regulation. Now, California regulations here, let me just first say this, are different from any other state. So if you went and you Googled all this, you're going to get totally confused, all right? It's the look-back period. So if you Google it, the rest of the country, the look-back period is 5 years. Here in California, our look-back period is 2.5 years or 30 months. So if you're trying to vet somebody, let's say you're talking to an attorney, a social worker, or some other professional, and you want to figure out if they know what they're talking about when it comes to Medi-Cal, just simply ask them, what's the look-back period in California? If they say 5 years, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, the look-back period currently in California is 2.5 years or 30 months. What does the look-back period mean? So let's say in this example, the red circle is us filing a Medi-Cal application, and for example, let's say it's the month of March. So the state's going to look back 2.5 years prior to the month of application to see if we've transferred assets to someone other than our spouse. Right, so that's the bluish, purplish area there. That's the 2.5 year look back. So let's say that I gave my son $3 million 3 years ago. Is that inside or outside of the look back period? Well, it's outside. So because I did it 3 years ago and it's outside of the look back period, it has absolutely no bearing on my eligibility for Medi-Cal benefits today. All right? Now the yellow circle. That's inside of the look-back period, correct? All right, so now what's going to happen is that the Medi-Cal worker is going to say, okay, how much did you give to your son 2 years ago? Did you give him $10,000? Did you give him $100,000? How much? So if you make a gift or a transfer within the look-back period, you are either going to be eligible or ineligible for benefits based upon how much you gave that person, all right? And the period of ineligibility is going to be from the date, for instance, that's on the check, or it's on the date that you sold the house, whatever the case may be, whatever documentation, okay? It's going to be from the date of the transfer. So as an example, let's say mom wants to give $200,000 to her daughter and wants to qualify for Medi-Cal immediately. So basically what would happen is she would write a check. This is what most people do. They would write a check for $200,000 and then give it to her daughter. Okay, well, that's incorrect. That's the wrong way to do it in California. So if she does it that way, she cannot apply for Medi-Cal for 21 months. So basically all that gift that she gave to her daughter's going to have to use that to pay for mom's care. In California, if we were involved in it, mom would be able to qualify immediately and we would be able to protect that $200,000 that she wanted to give to her daughter. There's a special way of being able to make gifts that would satisfy the Medi-Cal department. And by the way, this is in California only. Okay, so Karl, let's say I want to, you're saying I can give away $200,000, okay, but I heard that you can only give away about $15,000 a month or 14 or whatever the number is, okay? So let's clarify that. When we do this particular strategy in order to get people qualified, we have to deal with two government agencies. Number one, Medi-Cal, number two, the IRS, all right? So we talked about Medi-Cal. Let's talk about the IRS. Where does that $15,000 number come from? So the law is you can give away up to $15,000 per person each year without having to file a gift tax return. Notice, folks, it doesn't say I'm limited to giving away $15,000. It just says that if I give away $15,000 less, I don't have to file a gift tax return. So as an example, let's say that Joe Blow gave me $16,000, okay? So Joe would have to file a gift tax return for, think about it, $16,000 minus $15,000 or $1,000, right? Because Joe gave away $1,000 above the $15,000 threshold, right? So now the question is, do we, Joe or myself, have to pay tax on that? The answer is no. Okay, so Joe doesn't have to pay tax on giving me the money, and I don't have to pay the tax on receiving it, all right? So what a lot of people are not aware of, that each of you as individuals can give away for 2020 up to $11.58 million, all right? That's a lot of money, right? Can give away up to $11.58 million in your lifetime without incurring any tax. So what's going to happen is that Joe will file a gift tax return for $1,000. That $1,000 then is going to be subtracted from his lifetime exemption of $11.58. He's going to owe zero. So he owes zero and I owe zero. It's a good thing, right? Okay, so the final piece of the puzzle, your estate planning documents. Very important. So most married couples back in the day have what is called an AB living trust. And I think that's a ticking time bomb, okay? So let's say that, what is an AB trust? Well, let me give you an example. So while both spouses are living, they control 100% of all of their estate, all of their assets. But once one spouse dies or is incapacitated, then if you have an AB trust, we have to go right down the middle and separate out half to each spouse. So for the deceased spouse, it goes into the B trust. And what does B stand for? Below ground. And the other 50% of the assets goes to who? The surviving spouse, into the A trust, and that stands for above ground. So that's legal jargon, right? So you better write that down. Okay, AB trust, okay? Now, what happens though is if the surviving spouse now needs to apply for Medi-Cal, they've got to use up all the money in the B trust first before they can qualify for Medi-Cal, okay? So if we're trying to protect all of the estate for the kids, have we done our job? No, it's because of the AB living trust, okay? So what we recommend, you talk to your attorney, but get what's called a disclaimer trust. All right, so that means that upon first death, the surviving spouse can figure out, well, do we want to go into an AB situation, or do I want to just disclaim it and I retain control of all of our assets? Talk to your attorney. That's called a disclaimer trust. So which do you have? Do you know? If you don't know, and if you have an AB trust, when should you fix it? Yeah, you should fix it right now, okay? Because you don't know what's going to happen in the future, okay? This is the most important document I think that you can have. It's called a durable power of attorney for asset management. In essence, it's your financial power of attorney. It says that if I'm incapacitated and I can't make financial decisions for myself, I want this person or that person to be able to do that for me, all right? So when we're talking about Medi-Cal, we like to have these specific provisions in the power of attorney. Now, remember, Not all attorneys are created equal, okay? There are some attorneys out there, believe it or not, that don't believe in Medi-Cal planning. And those attorneys will prepare their documents the old-fashioned way, and they won't make any Medi-Cal planning provisions. Other attorneys say, you know, hey, let's put the Medi-Cal planning provisions in there, okay? And so we're looking for things like power to transfer ownership in the home, power to gift, whatever I need to do in order to get qualified for Medi-Cal, that's a Medi-Cal planning provision. The kids, if they're the authorized representative, okay, they need to be able to transfer assets or money to themselves, and they need to be able to name beneficiaries, name new beneficiaries if they have to move the IRA or any other account around. Okay, so these are some of the powers that we're looking for. Do you have these powers in your document? And if you don't, when should you fix it? Yeah, you know the answer, right? Right away. Okay, so here's some examples of impossible but true scenarios that we help people with over time. So go back to the case with the husband and wife, husband with the massive stroke. And remember, this bill was $26,000 a month, okay? And his wife was absolutely just panicked as to how we were going to take care of this. And she really didn't believe that we could get him qualified for Medi-Cal until she actually saw this. This is the notice of action. And you notice that it says Medi-Cal approval. Now look in the right-hand column down to where we've highlighted in yellow the share of costs. So how much is he going to have to pay for his subacute care? What does it say there? Zero. So we went from $26,000 a month down to zero. Now, if you were his wife, how would you feel at that time? Yeah, you feel pretty good, right? Okay, and then in addition, after he passed away, he was a tough guy. He lived for 72 months. After he passed away, right, there was no recovery. So we protected their home, their business and savings. We protected everything, okay, over $1 million. One more case, wife was needing long-term care. Husband and wife, they owned a home. They were part owner in a ranch. They had some vacant land, $800,000 in countable assets, and $50,000 in retirement accounts. Once again, notice of action, Medi-Cal approval. So look at her share of costs. Unbelievable. Now, granted, these are examples of husband and wife situations. So there's something called the spousal allowance. A little too complicated to go over here. All right, but if you read my book or you get the video series, we go through all of that. So for them, $7,000 a month was a nursing home bill. Her share of cost was $185. So we saved them $6,800 a month. And each year that was over almost $82,000 in savings. And once again, no recovery because we had planned for that. So we protected the home, we protected the ranch, the savings, and the IRAs. We protected everything, right? So it is possible to do all of this. It's not impossible, it is possible. So to wrap up, chronic diseases are the leading cause of death and disability in the United States. 133 million of Americans suffer from at least one chronic disease, right? 1 out of 3 age 85 or older are going to come down with Alzheimer's and dementia. 64% are going to be women. And all this is because we're living longer than nature intended. All right, we're supposed to live only to age 32. But we're living to 80, 85, 90, 95. We're living longer than nature intended. So what does that mean? That means that in the case of a long-term care crisis, you could lose everything if you're not prepared. The healthcare system is transforming. I don't have to tell you that. You see it on the news all the time. Obamacare, all of this coming up, right, with the coronavirus right now. But we know how to operate successfully in this new playing field. We've been doing it for over 25 years. If you plan, and you plan properly, and you do it now, you'll be able to leave twice as much to your family as someone who didn't plan. Right? And like I said, I've got over 25 years invested in helping families to protect their assets in the case of a long-term care crisis.
And that brings us to the end of our webinar. For those of you that would like a personal evaluation, we are making that available. Our normal consultation fee is $300. But for you being here today, we're going to discount that to free. So if you would like me to take a look at your personal situation and give you an evaluation, there'll be no charge for that. But this is a limited time offer. We found that this evaluation is really helpful to people that have a parent, a family member, spouse, somebody that's already in or soon to be in a nursing home. It really helps to give you your options, figure out what's going to happen in terms of cost so you can be prepared. This is really useful for people with somewhere between $50,000 all the way up to $2 million in liquid assets. I know that seems like a broad range, but there's a lot of things that we can do for people even in the higher number there. And remember that in order to take advantage of Medi-Cal, you have to be a California resident. So the personal evaluation is going to be done online or the phone. You're going to get us through email your specific information. And then I'll prepare a detailed evaluation showing what assets we can protect and how we're going to do it. The bottom line is that this is going to help you to save thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars each month on nursing home costs. And we'll also go over how to protect the assets from recovery. Remember in the webinar we talked about recovery. Think of Medi-Cal as a loan program. So while you're alive and you're in a nursing home, the state is going to help to pay for some of your nursing home costs. But after you pass away, California wants their money back. So that process is called recovery. So we're going to show you very easy, simple ways that you can avoid recovering. So if you sign up for a personal evaluation, what we're going to do is send you out a form that we'd like you to fill out. It shouldn't take any more than 15 minutes. We need information on how much you have in bank and credit union accounts, investment accounts, cash value life insurance. So you can take a look at your most recent statement. This shows the cash value, and then we also need to know if you have any annuities, how much is in that. For real estate, timeshares, vacant land, other real estate, other property, we need to know that. Retirement accounts, what is the value of your retirement accounts? And then finally, income. So remember on income, assets for a married couple are counted together, but for income is treated separately. So how much income do we have in the husband's name only? How much income do we have in the wife's name only? And we're talking about income that cannot be turned off. So things like Social Security, your required minimum distribution, if you have any pensions. So we need to know that information. If you would like to take advantage of the consultation, you can give us a call at 1-800-414-6722. That's 1-800-414-6722. Or you can email me at Karl, with a K, K-A-R-L, at retirementplanningadvisors.com. That's Karl at retirementplanningadvisors.com. If you want more information, you can go to our website, retirementplanningadvisors.com. And thank you very much for being here today.